Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining me, especially on this new members video to give you an insight in exactly what we do here at the Private Bitcoin Miners Members Club. But before I go into that, I just want to give a very warm welcome to each and every one of you and joining us on this wonderful journey, which I hope to be around about 2 years, and one that will be a life-changing journey, just as it was for me in the last cycle back in 2018. So thank you very much indeed for becoming new members here. So in this video, I'm really going to be covering what our objectives are for the private members and how we're going to achieve them through this Bitcoin analysis, 60-day cycles, tracking the portfolio, the Bitcoin miners, which are the Bitcoin miners, and the exchanges we use to trade on, and also keeping an eye on the Bitcoin miners through the Bitcoin monthly production and other factors as well. So if that sounds interesting, then without further ado, get yourself a cup of tea, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, let's get cracking. But before I begin, the usual polite reminder, please remember everything that I do in this video and in the Private Members Club is just for educational purposes. So please always do your wider research before you make any investment decisions or any swing trade decisions. Okay, so what are the objectives for the private members? Simply for me, it's really to make everybody as much money as we possibly can. And that is to maximize the value. And I feel that in the crypto space, the best way to maximize the value is to focus on the Bitcoin miners. So on this journey for the next 2 years, it would give me the greatest pleasure to add value to each and every one of you in your journey to becoming a millionaire. So that's really my primary objective, to make as much money as possible, i.e. maximize the value from the Bitcoin miners. So how am I going to do that? Well, I can only share with you what I do. Obviously, I can't provide financial advice. I can just share with you what I do, and then everybody who has their own unique set of financial circumstances. So hopefully, whatever I'm doing, you'll be able to get some value from that. And then with your wider research, you can come to your own conclusions and make the decisions which are the best for you. So what I have here at Wisdom Bites is really a long-term portfolio. I believe the best value you can get is to keep your money in there, because we don't really know when the oscillations are going to be for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners indirectly. And in the absence of that, what I find is that the best way to really do that is to keep the majority of the money in a long-term portfolio over the 4-year cycle, and then to add to that portfolio by 2 methods which I've found are the best that work for me. One is the ratios, which nobody else uses as far as I know, and then the other one is just the swing trades, which a lot of traders do. So by using this method and this method, what we do is we add all the profits from that into the long-term portfolio here. So these are my objectives, and I'm going to have a look at the long-term portfolio and how we use the ratios as well as the swing trades for the last 8-9 months. But before I go into that, I just want to give you an overview of exactly what this journey is. So as I mentioned in most of my videos, even in the normal videos that I do on Mondays, that we are really on this journey. These are the halvings, the red lines along here and here. So this is the journey that after the halving, you'll find that there's a blow off top after every halving about 18 months afterwards. So you'll see that there's a blow off top, and we're expecting the same blow off top unless we have a left translated cycle, which I explain in other videos as well. But generally, on the whole, this is a 4-year cycle from the bottoms to the next bottom, to the next bottom, to the next bottom, and then hopefully there'll be another bottom at the end of 2026. So that's the 4-year journey we're on, and we're currently at this point in December 2023, and we've got 2 more years on this journey if it works out to be a normal 4-year cycle. And the biggest hurdles we've got here on this journey is nothing else but 2 words, and that is patience and you. We are the biggest obstacles to making this journey successful, because somewhere along the line with these oscillations, we will lose the patience, the second main obstacle. We will lose the patience and make decisions which will go against you, which is exactly what the market wants. So as long as we actually control our own emotions and keep the patience, we will get to our destination and collect the treasure that is awaiting everybody there. So those are the 2 main challenges that I see between now and the end of 2025, where I expect the 4-year cycle to end. So I hope you'll be with me for the duration of these 2 years, and it's my job to keep everyone level-headed, to keep everybody neutral and flexible so that bad decisions aren't made along the way. Okay, so I'm going to go into the portfolio that I have. Okay, so this is the portfolio I started on the 6th of January, which is about 3 or 4 months before I started the private members club here. And this portfolio only came about just to show people that instead of investing in Bitcoin, you could invest in an array of Bitcoin miners which have a lot of potential to the upside. And I was just going to follow this on my normal Monday videos. And in this particular portfolio, I identified Marathon and Cypher. When nobody was looking at Cypher, I was doing a lot of reading on Cypher, and I was very convinced that this is going to do really well, and it was one of my fastest 2 horses. If you've been watching me for at least a year or so, you'll know that these are the 2 horses that I said I was going to follow the most. And that's why I allocated the most amount of money in this portfolio, which is just a paper portfolio, by the way. So we got in Marathon and Cypher on the 6th of January at 4.22 and 65 cents. In fact, some of my investments in Cypher mining was actually at 42 cents because I was buying this before the 6th of January. So the rest of them were made up of the tier 2 and tier 3 companies over here, just to give a good split between the 3 levels. Then the objective was, with a starting capital of 110,000, I was hoping to make that into $1 million either by the end of 2023 or at least by the halving. And we did get up to just over 400,000, but then we had the big fall from July up to recently. But we're now back up to about 311,000. So you never know, by the halving, we could easily have another big run up for the Bitcoin miners. So this was my paper portfolio, and this was not much dissimilar to the one I actually have. My biggest holdings in my own portfolio are these basically. So with 100% of my portfolio is divided up into this. I have 90% invested in the Bitcoin miners, and I have 10% for the swing trades, which I've been using since the beginning of this year. Of the 90%, 40% was invested in Cypher, and 40% was invested in Marathon, and 10% was invested in some of the smaller cap companies just to have exposure. I didn't want to take the risk, but I wanted the exposure for some of the smaller minnows in this space. So this 10% really consists of having 1% in some of the smallest companies, which were basically in Stronghold, Mawson, Eny, A-N-Y, which is Sphere 3D, Greenwich, and having around about between 2 and 3% in Iris Energy and TerraWolf. So those were my makeup of all my portfolio, which is exactly what it is currently. So half of my long-term portfolio, which is 90%, is made up of Cypher and Marathon, and 10% currently is made up of the smaller companies. And this 10% here, the swing trade portion, whatever I get from there, the profits, I add into my long-term portfolio here. And my objective for the end of this year was really to increase the number of holdings in my 90% portfolio from Cypher and Marathon to include Riot and CleanSpark. So these were my 4 holdings that I was going to carry for the rest of the 2 years of this journey to the end of the bull market. But unfortunately, in recent times, CleanSpark has run away with the price, and I really don't like to chase that. And Riot have a plan to increase their exahash by around about 100, which means that they're going to dilute somewhere down the line, which to me always means that their share price is going to take a hit. So until that's out of the way, I really don't want to get into Riot. So for the time being, I just want to stick with Cypher and Marathon and the 10% swing trades. But I use another method called the ratios, and I made a special video explaining how this actually works. So I'll play you a clip from that video now, and then you'll know exactly how that works. Okay, so I'm going to show it in a way of a histogram. So on the left hand side, we've got the price of the asset, we've got Marathon here, and we've got Cypher here. So these are 2 realistic examples. And the price I've got for Marathon at the moment here is at $10 and the Cypher at $2. So let's say this price is happening in January 2023. So the ratio at this point with these prices at 10 and 2, the ratio here would be 10 divided by $2, and that would give you a ratio of 5. And let's say you've got $1,000 in Marathon invested here, and then $1,000 invested in Cypher. So at the moment, at these prices, you've got, so let's say a month later, in February, the price for Marathon remains at $10 and Cypher goes up to $4. So your value of your 1,000 is now $2,000. And the Marathon still remains obviously at $1,000. But your ratio has changed now from 10 divided by 2 to 10 divided by 4. and that gives you a ratio of 2.5. And so this is the pattern that I discovered with the Marathon and Cypher at the beginning of this year up to about April. So the pattern was going from around about just under 5 to around about 3. So I'm using simple figures just to explain this. So when I noticed that this pattern was continuing, like from 5 to 2.5, back to 5, back to 2.5, back to 5, etc., I decided to start moving my funds, which is in the long-term portfolio, from one to the other. So here, Cypher's doubled to 4, the ratios come down, so the next ratio was going to go back up to the 5. So what I've done in the past for the last 4 or 5 times is take the £2,000 from Cypher and invest it into Marathon, because this is now going to be going up according to this method. So now what I've got is I've got £3,000 invested in Marathon by doing this swap, and I've got, let's say, nothing, just to make it easier, I've got nothing here. I'm waiting for Marathon to go back up so that the ratio goes back to 5 again. And obviously it's not hard and fast that it has to be an exact amount. As long as it's near that figure, that's okay by me. So let's say the price for Marathon goes from $10 to $15. And the price for Cypher goes from $4 to $5. So that goes up a little bit more. But now the ratio is 15 divided by 5. So that gives you a ratio of 3. Then that's good enough for me. But obviously these 3,000, because the price has gone from $10 to $15, that's 50% higher. So this 3,000 is now going to be worth 4,500. So I take that 4,500 and put it into Cypher, and then wait for that one to then go back up to the ratio of 5 in exactly the same way. So can you see how, starting off with just $1,000 each, the portfolio has now grown to $4,500. So it's more than doubled just by a couple of moves by swapping these from one to the other. And then you just carry on doing it. It's a very simple method. And if the ratio doesn't go, well, you've still got more money you're holding now than before. So it's been well worth doing it. So I hope that explains it. It's very simple. It's not really complicated. And just have a look at the current ratio as it is now. So this is what I've been basically doing for the last 8-9 months. So I've been going into Cypher here when the price for Marathon goes much higher than the Cypher price. And when Cypher catches up, obviously the ratio goes down. And then I move into Marathon, then I move into Cypher here, then back into Marathon, then back into Cypher, and here back into Marathon one more time. Now, currently, I've been selling my Marathon here and moving into Cypher. And the current position with those is that, as I gave you in last week's video, that we were coming up to this green line. And what happens is that when it comes to the green line, it tends to get rejected. But as I mentioned before, that sometimes it doesn't stop at the green line and goes much further. And this is exactly what it's done. So if you've been watching my message boards, I said that I'm not going to be trading at the green line. I'll wait until the 61.8 is hit, which was at 3.9. So I did a 25% swap here. Then the next point was going to be this trend line all the way, very strong trend line. And it came all the way to there. It was hanging around and could have come down from there, but it obviously didn't. So this is where I swapped another 25% at the 4.17. And then the 78.6, this orange line, was where the 4.4 was. And I changed another 25%, not yesterday, but day before. So the last tranche of my 25% is at this point, this range here, that has been going from this range all the way down to this range. So that's going to be at 4.8. Obviously, it can still go much higher. I'd be worried if it starts going above that, because then it's breaking this strong resistant point. I would certainly expect this to come down and have some sort of a correction. And that would fit in nicely with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin can go to about 40, 41, 42, then I'm expecting a pullback there. So similarly, once we reach this point here, we should get a pullback. But if we don't and it starts moving higher, then I would have to start going back into my Marathon at this point, because it's breaking this trend line here. And that's why I say that we've got to always keep a fluid and flexible approach to everything. And we have to really respond to how the price is. But now, as I said last week, we may break this trend line, and that would be worrying, but there is that last resistance point here at about 4.8. And I just want to mention the other ratio that I've got on my chart here, and that is the Riot and the Marathon. And as I've been mentioning in the last few videos now, the red support line here got broken, and when it did, I said it will probably come and retest it at 1.09. And at exactly 109, it came and retested it. But what you got was an outside bar red candle here. And that told me that it's now going to be coming down. And the next stop would be this support line here. So you can see there's a really strong support line at this point. But once again, this is coming to the fourth go, and this may well break. So based on this support line, you would expect a bounce back up in favor of Riot, for Riot to go up in relation to Marathon. But the Marathon is showing a lot of strength at this moment, and it may well be that at this point here, where they should be around about parity, and if it comes down today, let's say, it should be about 0.98. So maybe Marathon just goes ahead of Riot, but that may well be the catalyst for the Riot to then take off again. But if the Marathon becomes really strong, there might be some good news for Marathon coming in, then this will probably happen. So I'm just keeping an eye on there. I haven't done any swaps with Riot at all. I've just been focused with the Marathon and the Cypher. But if this starts moving to the upside and goes above this point here, about 1.03, I may transfer a little bit of my long-term portfolio into Riot here to ride it in relation to Cypher and Marathon. So I'll just have to make that decision a little bit later on. I'm just monitoring this at the moment. So the current ratio between Riot and Marathon is 1.3, and it's come down from this point here only just a few weeks ago at 1.24. So Riot was about 25% ahead of Marathon just a few weeks ago, and it's now come to parity. So Marathon is really doing very well in relation to Riot. And if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll try and answer any of your queries. The important thing to remember is it's your choice whether to play the ratios. If I hadn't discovered this ratios thing between the Marathon and the Cypher, I would have just left my long-term portfolio completely alone. I just find that sometimes doing nothing makes you a lot more money than the reason why I do it is because it's no risk at all. Because what I'm doing is obviously on the same day, at the same time, I'm selling one and immediately buying the other. So I don't have any cash that I'm riding and waiting for the price to go down or up or what have you. So it's just a simple swap, selling one and buying the other immediately. And I understand it's not for everyone. So there you have it. That's how the ratios work. And this is what I've been doing from the beginning of this year by firstly observing how this worked and then secondly putting it into practice from about April. So what I've done is I've moved from Cypher to Marathon, Marathon to Cypher within that long-term portfolio so I don't take any risks. It's a portfolio that I really don't want to take any risks for the next 2 years. I want to keep that totally intact, but I want to add to it through these ratios and through the swing trades. So what are the swing trades? So this is what I normally show in terms of the swing trades that we've had. We use the 60-day cycle, which I'll go into a little bit later, but we use the 60-day cycles to actually determine when to get into the swing trades. So we had the first round of the swing trades in March this year, and as I've shown you, we had these results here. And in the second round of trades, which began in July 2023, we had these results here. Then we had a third round, we were stopped out. And this is the beauty about using stop losses. You limit your losses. So we must have lost about 3 or 4% on those stopped losses. But since then, we've had round 4, which is currently ongoing now. And that started on the 18th of October. And we've had 2 parts to this. We originally started with Marathon, Cypher and TerraWolf, these 3, at these prices here, which were really good now compared to what's going on currently, and we got stopped out on 2 of them, TerraWolf and Marathon, but we did make 7.5% with Marathon and 33% with Cypher, and I closed that position because it had gone to 394, which is one of our targets. So I had 2 targets for that one at 297 and 394, and overall I made a 33% profit there. And on the TerraWolf we got stopped out at a 5% loss. But since then we've got back on Marathon and Cypher at these prices. Once again, they were very good prices. And these are the stop losses that I've got for them. They're still live, so they're still continuing. I have taken 50% profit on Marathon at around about 12.50, around there. And so far, it's going up by 72%, while Cypher is up about 7.5%. But I'm still expecting this to do quite well. So these are the 2 that are ongoing at the moment. So this is our swing trades, which I show on a regular basis in both the private member section as well as on the Monday, because there's a lot of people who are keeping an update on our swing trades, but they're not members. So maybe somewhere down the line, they may want to become members. So I do try and show them what's happening in case they want to become members and take advantage of this wonderful journey we're on for the next 2 years. So in a nutshell, the whole objective is to make everyone a millionaire, and to achieve those objectives through this long-term portfolio and adding to it by the ratios method and the swing trades, the profits that we get from them. So in those objectives, these are the things that we cover on a regular basis in the members videos. We do a general Bitcoin analysis. We do a 60-day cycles analysis. That's for the swing trades. So we know that at the end of every cycle, when a new cycle begins, once that's confirmed, we know that the Bitcoin miners are going to normally respond. And that's when we get into the Bitcoin miners on the swing trades. And then what I do is I track their portfolio, as I've just shown you. Sorry, this should be a B. The Bitcoin miners we have a look at in terms of 3 tiers. So tier 1 is basically the safest companies with the biggest market cap and the biggest Bitcoin production on a monthly basis, as well as having very good potential to grow on the upside. So this is really the best case overall scenario without taking too much risk. Tier 2 is a similar thing, but not as good as the tier 1. And tier 3 are really your small companies with a small market cap, which have a very high risk, but they also have a very high potential reward. And because I'm a little bit risk averse to that type of exposure, I tend not to invest too much of my money in this area. But I have used some of these for my swing trades, because I know that you can get explosive moves here, as we've seen recently in the last few days. And I also show the exchanges that I trade on and all the other people can trade on with a list of all the options. And I also regularly give a Bitcoin monthly production, especially at the beginning of the month when most of the miners actually release their figures for the number of Bitcoins that they mined in the previous month. So these are the things we cover. So you know all about the Bitcoin analysis I do on a regular basis. If you've seen my videos on the Monday, that's the normal Bitcoin analysis. The 60-day cycle is the same as the one I use on the Monday. So we use that to determine when to get into the swing trades. So this is the 60-day cycle chart that I use. So we started back in March here. When we bottomed out in March, this is when we got into the swing trades for the Bitcoin miners. And back in July, when this cycle was confirmed, we got into the Bitcoin miners and did very well there. But then we had 2 failed cycles, which we never got going. And the 4th round was this one here. As soon as we confirmed the bottom of the cycle here, so the current trades are based on this cycle, when this was on the 12th of October. So on the 18th, that's when we started, about 6 days later, when we confirmed the breakout here and we got into the swing trades. And this is what we've been riding ever since then. So the next cycle, whenever that begins, we will be then going into the new set of swing trades. This is the end of the cycle, these red dotted lines. Once we've had a pullback, wherever it's going to be, and then a new cycle starts, if it's going to be over here or a big fall down here, wherever it's going to be, once we confirm the 60-day cycle, then the new set of swing trades will start. That will be round 5. And that could be in a week's time or in a month's time. Just got to be patient. Like I say, the biggest 2 hurdles we've got is ourselves with our emotions and making the wrong decisions. And the second thing is not having the patience. So that's the 60-day cycles that we use for the swing trades. And tracking the portfolio, I do the update on the portfolio, which I've just shown you here. So I do an update on that. Every time the markets move, I'll do an update and see exactly where this tally is. And whatever I do in my personal portfolio, I always leave on the message board in the member section. The tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3. So these are what I regard as the overall best miners in terms of market cap, in terms of size, in terms of low debt, in terms of the number of Bitcoin they're producing. So on a lot of number of factors, when I crunched all the numbers, I came to this conclusion that these were the best and the most safest companies with the greatest potential within the confinements of that. However, another analyst may come to a different conclusion, but that's up to them. I can only share with you what I'm thinking. So these are the 4, which I regard as the 4 top companies in this space. And this is followed by the next lot of companies over here. I think Stronghold should really be in tier 3. So apart from Stronghold, Hut 8 is very good, Bitfarms, Hive, TerraWolf and Iris. They all have their own issues as well, but they also have very good growth potential. And I put them in my tier 2. And these are the smaller companies with the smaller market caps, apart from BitDeer, which has got quite a big market cap, and also Core Scientific, which was in chapter 11, and that should be coming out back on the market in around about the first week of January. So apart from these 2, the majority of these are very small nano cap companies between 10 and 40, $50 million. But they do hold the biggest potential as well, as we've seen recently with 60, 70 and 80% rises. And everybody has to do what they need to do depending on their own unique financial situation. All I can say is that currently I have 1% holdings in Eni, Mawson, Greenwich, and also Iris and TerraWolf. But before the halving, I will be selling my 1% holdings and just concentrating on these 4. And these are the exchanges that we use. I'm in the UK, so depending on which country you're in the UK, I tend to use Hargreaves Lansdown for my ISAs. ISAs are a tax-free way to invest in stocks and shares. eToro is where I use for my swing trades. IBKR has the list of all the Bitcoin miners. So if you come across any of the exchanges, you'll find that one or two may not be there. But IBKR does have all of them. And you can use the other ones as well. I'm sure they're as good as any of them. So this is the list you can choose from. And every month, at the beginning of the month, especially when most of the companies actually release their Bitcoin mining production for the previous month, I tend to follow these: Marathon, Riot, Cypher, Stronghold, Wolf, Greenwich, Mawson, Iris Energy, Argo, BitDeer, Bitfarms, Hut8, CleanSpark, Sphere 3D, Hive, and Core Scientific. There are a few others, but I tend to follow a select few most of the time, but I do have the figures for these. One of the main things to track is always not just the Bitcoin mined, but also the cost per Bitcoin. As you can see, they vary a lot. Here's from 17,000, 20,000, 10,000. This is one of the reasons why I like Cypher, because it's got the lowest cost to produce each Bitcoin. But it can go to 25,000 for Stronghold, and the others are in between all those figures. So these are the objectives for this Bitcoin Miners Club. Okay, so I got a request from one of the new members, Jim Bell Isle, saying that if you could please cover how to find the exact indicators you use, i.e. RSI MTF, and the Pi cycle, and the settings for each. Okay, to find the RSI MTF, MTF stands for multiple time frame. So if you type in RSI bands, BANDS, then you'll get this one here, the RSI bands multiple time frame by Jigger Striker. This is the one that I use. So if you have a look at the settings on that, these are the inputs that I have. I think these are slightly different to the default settings. So I did change them when I first got that. And if you're on the free trading view, you may not have the option to change these. But if you're on the professional one, then you should be able to change some of them if you wanted to. I'm on the premium one, so you can do whatever you like. And I always find that paying a little bit extra to get the extra options really does help, because if that helps you to make hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, then it's all worth it. So these are the inputs on my settings here. And this is the style with these boxes ticked. And the visibility is very similar. I don't change these ever. And the Pi cycle, to get this in the search bar, all you have to do is type the PI. And when you do that, you get this one here, Pi cycle Bitcoin top indicator and a bottom indicator. So there are two of them, and I actually use both. So the one I normally use, because we're in a bull market, I use the one that's for the top indicator, and that's the one by Bilzerian, CAND. Then in the bear market, I tend to use this one here, the Pi cycle bottom indicator by Doncic. And the settings on those, if you go to the inputs, the long moving average, which is the red line, is the 350 simple moving average on the daily chart. And the short moving average is this green line here, and that is the 111 simple moving average. So there you have it. This is exactly what we cover here in the Bitcoin Miners private member section. And if you haven't got TradingView, or you want to upgrade and you want to help the channel, below all of my videos you'll find this link with the TradingView. So if you click on that and go through that, that would help the channel as well. And then you can upgrade to whatever the discounts that are available at the time. Also to mention that if you want to catch all the updates, if you go to my channel, on the membership tab here, you'll see that I leave an update virtually every single day, either during the trading hours or even just after it, to give a market update. And all the videos are all on there as well, as you can see here. Okay, so we'll leave it there. I hope you found value in the video. If you did, then please do remember to click the like button, as it helps the logarithms on the channel. And if you've got any comments, questions or suggestions, then leave them in the comments below. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.